NBC News anchor Matt Lauer is the latest high-profile TV personality to be accused of sexual misconduct. The network announced it was firing the Today Show host Wednesday after a complaint from a colleague detailed inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace. NPR's media correspondent David Folkenflik joins me now. So David, Matt Lauer joins other major network figures, including Charlie Rose at CBS, Bill O'Reilly at Fox, who have been accused of abusing their power. How are networks looking to essentially cover those stories from within and also try and implement some change?
Well, I think you have two separate mandates there. Both of them, in a sense, are a question of keeping faith, right? The journalistic mandate, and something we had to struggle with at NPR. Earlier this month, our former chief news executive was dismissed after complaints had been lodged against him and came to light. And I think it's a question of keeping faith with your audience, but also keeping faith with your newsroom, showing that the journalistic imperative is paramount. And that dovetails with the question of, what you're doing as a corporate manager. Let's not forget CBS, NBC, CNN just fired a producer earlier today. There are other places where things are surfacing. These are all news organizations, but they're also parts of major media conglomerates, and they've got corporate obligations and responsibilities. They've got to see that they take care of their workplace. They've got to see that they take care of their public image. And they also got to make sure that their audiences aren't turned off. Matt Lauer, think of that. A guy beamed into the homes of millions of Americans. How many of those predominantly female viewers are going to take to him if they think that, as is alleged, that he's been preying on a lot of his younger female colleagues?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, are we seeing this public reckoning likely to continue? More stories across the spectrum, perhaps, are going to be emerging, you think?
I think there's a convulsion going on right now, and the question is whether this is an enduring one or whether it's an intense moment and that it ultimately passes, as, for example, there was a kind of public reckoning in the wake of the Anita Hill's allegations against then nominee to the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas. I think right now what we are seeing is you're seeing this cross different kinds of folks at different kinds of institutions. I think Fox News had a particularly pernicious and pervasive culture of acceptance of this from the top, from the late Roger Ailes, who was the founding chairman. But it's not limited to Fox, and it's not something limited to one ideology or another. I don't think that anyone who thinks that this is simply about the media is likely to be sustained in that belief. I think this is going to cut across industries, prominent and less so. I think particularly women in less prominent industries, service industries and the like, are particularly hard hit by this, but don't have access to a platform or the media savvy of how and when to tell their own stories.
So more broadly then, and on that note, how are the public's perceptions, you think, of these allegations and also of how these claims have been handled? How have those perceptions changed? Because there seems to be an expectation now that there must be consequences when these kinds of stories are brought to light.
And there's a difference in the way in which people talk about it. You used to hear people say, well, so-and-so's a skirt chaser. So-and-so has an eye for the ladies. So-and-so likes younger women. You don't want to be in an elevator with that guy, but it's okay. Is it okay? Why is it okay? Why shouldn't you be safe in an elevator with a coworker, however well paid, however famous he might be? And I think those are questions that have been turned on their head in the past, call it, year and a half since the revelations at Fox, and particularly the revelations about Harvey Weinstein. You're seeing this affecting Hollywood. You're seeing it affecting, to some extent, the tech world. I think you're going to see a lot more there in what is only a recently more focused upon industry. And I think you may, depending on where journalists take their attention, see it in other industries as well.
You call this perhaps a convulsion, and the question is whether or not this is one moment or whether there'll be lasting sort of ramifications as a result of this. I wonder if you think that the message being sent, though, at least with swift action that's been taken in these most recent media cases, sends a message to people who are both inside and outside the industry about how it is that these companies are taking these allegations and how seriously they are taking these allegations.
I think it certainly should send a message. I think if Matt Lauer paid over $20 million a year to host what is clearly the franchise show for NBC, the economic engine that propels it, if Matt Lauer is dispensable within 36 hours of a complaint being filed Monday night, then no one is safe. No one should be safe, depending on the kinds of allegations being raised. I think the specificity of the allegations being documented in Variety and the New York Times this evening, obviously not proven legally, but nonetheless seemingly corroborated by other people who had contemporaneous knowledge, these would suggest that these are clearly actionable behaviors and not tolerable ones. For Matt Lauer to go as NBC News saying this will not be sustained at this network.
And a message for anyone who may have been victimized as well, in seeing that there are consequences to actions.
That's right. I think that's exactly the message that's being conveyed, and a message that management needs to be perceived as being conveyed.
Right. David Folkenflik. David, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.